Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Sportsnaut interview. I'm Scott Gulbransen, and today we're digging into something very special, close to my heart, and that's something that touches almost every family in America, youth sports and the growing gap between the kids who get to play and the kids who get priced or pushed out. In a brand new AP-Ipsos poll on sports parents just dropped some eye-opening numbers you need to be aware of. More than half of parents with school-age kids have a child in organized sports, but the barriers are real. 73% of parents say team and club fees are a major or minor challenge. 72% point to travel costs, and 69% cite equipment and uniforms. And when kids do quit, too expensive is one of the top reasons why, right up there with the pressure to perform and just not feeling good enough to keep playing. Here's the flip side. 89% of sports parents say the benefits of youth sports outweigh the drawbacks. Teamwork, confidence, fitness, and of course, friendship, the stuff that sticks with a kid for life. So the real question isn't whether youth sports matter. It's why we're locking so many of these kids out of something we all agree is good for them and what we do about it. Now, to talk about this, to help me unpack that all, I'm joined by Jen Rifkin, Executive Director of the Volo Kids Foundation. Jen has spent her career fighting to get kids access to play, first as an educator up in Baltimore County, and now leading Volo Kids programming across 11 markets nationwide, where she's helped grow the organization from serving 10,000 kids a year to nearly 30,000. Jen, thanks so much for joining me today on the Sportsnaut interview.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited about this conversation. This is a topic very close to my heart.
All right. So, Jen, this new AP-Ipsos poll shows parents naming fees, travel, and equipment costs as real barriers. And cost is one of the top reasons we know that kids are quitting out there when it comes to youth sports. From where you sit at Volo Kids running programs in 11 markets, how bad is the problem actually? And who are the kids getting squeezed out first?
It's a pretty big problem nationwide. Sports are so incredibly important, but with the privatization of youth sports, there's like a big domino effect that's happening. Kids are starting to play and specialize in just one sport earlier and earlier, and the kids that have families that can afford to play that and participate in sports earlier, they benefit from that, and then kids that can't afford that don't benefit. So already one of the domino pieces has fallen. We already have kids being squeezed out. Then we start specializing. Kids get as early as 7 or 8, become players on this track to becoming a college athlete, a professional athlete. We lose the joy of play in that. They're specializing more and more. And then another domino falls because now the parents are starting to pay for more exclusive training, more high-end equipment. So more and more kids are getting squeezed out, and everybody loses. It's not just the kids whose families can't afford to participate in the sports. It's kids who just want to play for fun, but they aren't ready to commit to a serious college level sport at 9 or 10. All of a sudden they're squeezed out. It's kids whose families might have the financial means, but they don't have the bandwidth to drive kids to practice 4 times a week and travel every weekend to get their kid to gain exposure. They're getting squeezed out. And then it's the kids that just want to play and don't have the experience level that some kids are getting because they've been playing since they could walk. They get squeezed out, and then it just stops being about play altogether, and it just starts being about something else that sports were never intended to be about.
Yeah, it's crazy. And I've coached youth sports for 24 years, and the changes I've seen are very, very disturbing. And I'll use an example, a personal example, and that was my first 2 kids, my 2 older kids, were competitive. They played all the way competitive through high school. My third, my son, who just went away to college, by the way, he played baseball for a little bit, and then he wanted to stop playing because he wanted to play lacrosse, to your point about choice and choosing different sports. So he took 2 years off of baseball. I went to sign him up for baseball again, and I was dissuaded by coaches who said, oh, if he's missed 2 years, he's already behind. Well, behind what? Are you trying to build a factory of Major League ball players where the chances of a kid making it are so minuscule? So this is a different conversation for a different time, but parents play a big role in this too, in some of the competitive nature. But the
Yeah.
question I want to ask you now, with all that you laid out there around the cost, the feasibility of getting kids all over the place with travel and all this, how did we get here? Youth sports used to feel a lot more accessible. Rec leagues, school programs, pickup games like guys my age used to do. What changed? Is this about club and travel sports taking over and shrinking public investment, or is there something else entirely here?
I think there's a lot of factors that go into it. Certainly, families that see an opportunity for their kid to succeed and exceed expectations. Think about this. College is expensive too. So it is a way to get to college. But I think it's a little bit more than that. And this I do not think is unique to sports. But when we think about supply and demand, if there is an opportunity to pay for a service, to pay for extra training for your kid, and a family pays it, all of a sudden the demand is higher. Then you can raise the prices. But then you see that those families that are willing to pay those costs getting further and
Mm.
seemingly benefiting more from sports. We start to forget that there are more benefits in sports than just the forward trajectory of where you can go with sports. But once we start this habit of, okay, there are families that are willing to pay, there are families that are willing to make the time to do this, then that just becomes, that's now the new reality. You have to pay in order to participate. You have to make the time in order to participate. And more, the programs that are opportunistic and free and more about sports sampling become less important and become less of a presence in these communities. So it's almost like the more we do it, the more it is, and the more it is, the more we have to do it, and it's just this endless cycle that just keeps getting bigger and bigger and harder to combat.
Yeah, and the finances there, before we went on the interview here, I talked to you a little bit about, and this is not an indictment against all private equity, but now we're seeing private equity because of the money being spent on youth sports
Yep.
and the parents who can't afford it spending a lot of money doing this. Is that going to be an ongoing issue? And is there any way back from that?
I think it is going to be an ongoing presence. I think it is an issue right now, and again, we've seen this in other industries. The more we train the behavior that these prices are okay, the more these prices exist and the higher they get, and the more private equity will get involved. But I don't think this means that this is going to be the only option now forever. There are a lot of people and a lot of organizations out there that see the benefit of sports and understand that every kid should play, regardless of experience level or financial mean or all the other unfortunate barriers that stand in the way of sports participation right now. And I will use Volo Kids as an example, of course, but um, we're not the only people in our field in the nonprofit world that want to just get kids playing. And I see those organizations rising up and their voices becoming louder and louder and their seats at the table becoming more prevalent. So I think there is a flip side to this, that there are people fighting for sports and the youth sports and Bill of Rights.
Yeah, and certainly you're at the forefront of that. And that's the thing. I tell you, and all the kids I've coached, and I've had some kids go on and earn college scholarships or play in college, not necessarily the financial benefit, but they went on to advance in their career or in their playing, if you will. But the best stories and my most enjoyable and what I got out of it most as a coach were the kids who weren't that good. But boy, when you saw their self-esteem, the amount of fun they were having, some of these kids might have been homeschooled, didn't have a lot of socialization. To get out on the baseball field with other kids and to develop friendships was such a big thing. And to me, I take away from that, more than any trophies or anything we won, it was that reaching that one kid, helping them become a better person and live a better life. Because I looked at this poll as well, Jen, and I also found that 89% of parents believe the benefits outweigh the drawbacks.
Yeah.
And that's true, whether a kid's a future all-star or just out there having fun. Talk to me about what youth sports actually gives a child beyond the scoreboard, especially for kids who aren't the most skilled ones on the team.
Yeah. So I'll tell a story of my own, and it's I talk a lot about this particular story as something that I like to call a mission moment. The why are we doing this in the first place? Why is this fight worth fighting? When Volo Kids returned to the field to play after the COVID-19 pandemic, we returned to play at different points in 2020 and 2021, depending on what city we were in. But because I'm in Baltimore, I was there for our Baltimore relaunch, and we did everything that we could to keep everybody incredibly safe. We were launching a soccer program, and we had 3 fields, not just one, so that we could spread the kids out as much as we can. And we had all the kids were wearing masks, and they got their temperature checked at check-in, and parents had to stand very far away. And we did everything we could. And there were parts of me that were thinking, is this okay? Is everybody going to receive this well? Does everybody feel confident that we can keep their kids safe? And we got out there, and the kids were playing, and this is the first time the kids had the opportunity to be with other kids in person for a very long time. They were virtually learning, and it was all about how to stay at home and be together but separate. And I remember that day. What ended up happening was, and again, this was a soccer program. I really don't think very much soccer was learned that day. The kids, they almost a little bit looked like soccer balls themselves. They were just like rolling around. They were giddy. They were so happy to just be together with other kids and just be a kid and play. And they were safe, and they had a good time, and they learned something. But what I learned and was reminded of is it's, building the skill sets in sports is great, and building those healthy habits of getting out there and exercising is fantastic. But there's so much more that these kids are getting out of sports, just being with peers and learning how to socialize. I always go back to that memory of these kids just kind of rolling around and
That's
and
awesome.
not really focused on soccer at all. They probably could have cared less. If it had been football or soccer, they wouldn't have been able to tell the difference. They were just so excited to be out there and be a part of something and be with other people. It was so healthy for them. And I think about that all the time when I think about what sports actually give us beyond the skill set. And I don't think it's a bad thing if you excel at sports, and
No.
there is a track for you to go on to college. I hope that that's not the impression that I'm giving. It's not a bad thing. It can't be the only thing, because sports are so valuable and important. They taught me how to lead and how to be confident in myself. They also taught me how to lose,
Oh,
and how to
yes.
deal with it if something doesn't go well. I unfortunately can't just turn and face this wall behind me and be upset. I have to keep going. I have to deal with it, and I have to lean on my team and my, support system to do that. And kids can't lose out on that ability. It's
Yeah.
too valuable.
And you're right, because listen, I was not a great player, but I played my whole life, right? And I learned more about failure than I did
Yep.
about success. But that was huge, because kids today too, especially with social media and all this other stuff, they see all these successes and what people want you to see. But learning about that and using sports as a healthy way to do that makes
Yep.
so much sense to me. And I'm afraid that these kids lose that too. Not only the good times, but they also lose how to overcome challenges and adversity, which is so important to their growth. So now we framed the problem. We talked about some of the obstacles and some of the benefits, obviously, of youth sports, as we just did. So
Yep.
in your position, what you're doing with Volo Kids, what actually works? You've helped Volo Kids nearly triple the number of kids it serves. What's the playbook for getting more kids onto the field or the court? And what should parents, communities, or even companies watching this be doing to help close that gap?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of really important things that we do, but one of the biggest things that we do is just getting to know each community and building trust. One of the things that we talked about with the privatization of sports is a lot of these families are traveling pretty far to find programs that they need. And while we prioritize skill building and lesson planning, we do want the kids to learn the sport. We also find a lot of importance in just meeting the kids and the families where they are. So you mentioned we do play in 11 cities across the country. Each of those cities has a completely different personality, but we make it a point to go in and get to know each of those cities. It's not up to me to come to your city and say, this is what you need, because I know how important sports are. We truly want to know, what is the need? Where is the need? Where are the recreation deserts that we can plug into so that every kid in this city does have access to a sport field that they can walk to, that they can come play to? And then what isn't in that neighborhood? If there's a lot of basketball already happening, but nothing for free, that's where we can plug in. Or maybe bring a whole new sport so that the kids can sports sample and just find out what they even like and don't like. It's okay to try a sport and be like, you know what, this one isn't for me. I don't like this one at all. I'm going to try another one. Um, but really meeting families and communities where they are and understanding what the need is has worked incredibly well for us. And through that process, we also can find what are the different barriers that stand in the way. Very incredibly frequently, the financial barrier is the biggest barrier that we're finding in every city, but there are other ones as well. If you don't speak the language that everybody else in your community is speaking, you might not even know that these opportunities are available. And this might also be a whole nother conversation, but even the gender barrier exists, and the comfortability of girls coming into sports and playing things like flag football. You have to earn that trust and let them know this is a safe space for them to grow and learn and make mistakes. And so we really do try to get to know everybody in every community and then cater what we're doing to the needs of that community.
Yeah, no doubt about that. And I hope that the professional leagues and even college sports are paying attention, because I know they all field programs, which is
Yep.
great, and I credit them for that. But again, some of that comes down to cost as well, because some of these programs, NFL flag, and I'm not calling anybody out as a criticism. I'm just saying there are sometimes costs because those are run at a local level, and sometimes other organizations are involved, and the costs go up and up and up, and
Yeah.
and so hopefully we can make some progress there. And Jen, I mean, this is exactly the kind of work more people need to know about. For anyone watching who wants to get involved or support this mission, tell us about Volo Kids, the foundation, and how folks can help.
Yeah, that would be wonderful. And we accept all help in the most nonprofit way possible. All help is what we need. So Volo Kids is a national nonprofit. We run free sports programs for kids. So we're in 11 cities across the country. And like I've been preaching this entire time, the goal is just to get kids playing. There should not be anything that stands in the way of kids getting able to play. It's so beneficial, as we've discovered, even in this conversation. So we're just trying to break down the barriers to do that. There are all kinds of different ways that people can help. Uh, you can come out and coach with us. You can be a mentor for our kids. They're so connected to their coaches. The kids think that we're all professional players when they see us. It's actually very endearing. And if you don't have the schedule flexibility to come out and coach, you can volunteer behind the scenes. Everything from helping us write curriculum so that we're giving the kids the sports enrichment that they deserve, to helping us get the word out in the neighborhood. We also keep programs free for kids by bringing in funding to help us run these programs. So we're always looking for people to donate, to become members of our fundraising boards, or just to open the doors and help get the word out about who we are. But most importantly, I think just learning about Volo Kids is helpful. Anybody can visit our website, volokids.org, learn a little bit about what we do, and just share it out. And then we also have a partner, Volo Sports. They are an adult sport and social league, and they support us tremendously. They help us find volunteers. They help cover the cost of our overhead. Anybody that participates in a Volo Sports league is also supporting the kids. So like I said, there's so many different ways to get involved. And at the end of the day, no matter what kind of help it is, it's pushing us in the right direction of unlocking sports for all these kids across the country that can benefit from them.
That's awesome. And of course, we'll have the website and ways you can reach out to Jen and Volo Kids Foundation linked below in the description of both the podcast and the video. So make sure you take part. See if they're in your city. If they're not, get in contact with Jen. Find out how you can get one there, right? So we'll do that. Jen Rifkin, Executive Director of the Volo Kids Foundation. Thank you so much for being here today and for doing the work you're doing. It means so much. And I know we can turn this thing around and get more kids involved. Thanks for being with us.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. This was a great conversation, and I'm excited to keep moving forward with sports.
All right, there you have it. Jen Rifkin from the Volo Foundation. Make sure you check the links out below. Just such a big story for families across this country when it comes to sports. We all love sports, and we want our kids to enjoy the positives of that and also to learn the challenges. It helps them grow as kids. So hopefully we can make a dent, but we certainly appreciate Jen coming on and explaining to you here on the Sportsnaut interview. Thanks for being with me. I'm Scott Gulbransen. Check out sportsnaut.com for all the latest sports, and check out my story on this specific interview and about youth sports and that AP-Ipsos poll we referenced in the interview. Have a great week, everybody, and we'll talk to you soon.